Toys R Us in Puerto Rico, for whatever reason, would always have just like this clearance section of just like you see random Game Boy games. It's like years after, I mean, many years. It's like, I don't know if they were just left on a shelf in the back or something. One day I go there and they have a weeping selection of N64 games sealed. Now keep in mind, Toys R Us keeps their stuff in a that hard shell. So it's not just that it's complete in box, is that it's basically brand new. And these were like $5 to $10 each. Friends, let me take you back to 2003. I was a teen. I was heading over to Kmart because the game and movie section was pretty pathetic, but it's one of those things that you always love to just take a look at to see what was there. And then that day, I looked at the gaming section, and at the very bottom, tucked away, was a sealed copy of Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation 1, the Black Label people. But this little kid was out of a job, so he could not afford it because it was about $50. Then, a couple of weeks later, I actually had the money, and the copy was gone. It was not there. A sealed copy of Final Fantasy VII in 2003, and it was almost at the palm of my hands. And with that being said, people, this episode of A Cast of the Past is going to be focusing on our biggest gaming regrets, those things that we just want to be in the verge of tears as we think back to the past, with a brand new episode available each and every Sunday with yours truly, a very sad Juan Velas from Puerto Rico. Joining me, possibly also sad, from Boston, Massachusetts, we have Ryan McNulty. Ryan, if you were in my shoes, with the story that I don't even know if I had told you that story before, because that's actually real, people. Mm-hmm. Would you have just punched yourself in the face if that had happened to you?
It wouldn't feel great, but it was a little bit of a tough situation, because if you didn't have the money at the time, what could you have done?
It was there, maybe you could, but it was there, man.
I guess you could have maybe asked your mom, see if she maybe caved in and let you get it. You didn't push hard enough. That's the lesson learned.
Too late, man. Too late. But in your case, is there anything, when you think about regret in gaming, is there anything that's just like, this right here?
So the one that always comes to mind, and it's one that I could redeem someday, Xbox original, the first Fable game. I made it all the way to the final boss. I believe his name was the Jack of Blades. I tried many times to beat him and failed. And then I eventually just stopped playing the game. And then when I went to get my PS3, I traded in, this is another regret, listen to this, I traded in my Xbox original, my PS2, and my GameCube,
Ooh.
and all the games. So I guess this is a double whammy here.
Oh my good, Ryan, you didn't prepare me for this.
Yeah, traded all that into GameStop, so probably did not get much money for that.
You got like $20.
To get a refurbished PlayStation 3, which does still work, so that's all good. To get that PlayStation 3, the infamous one I bring up all the time to make Juan feel bad.
Yep.
And I never beat that game. I never beat Fable. I got all the way to the end, and I still, to this day, have never beaten the original Fable. So like I said, that's my biggest gaming regret, but I do have the chance to redeem it someday.
You have to, man. You have to. And that's actually a really good story there, because it reminds me, I had a similar situation with Final Fantasy IX on the PS1. You know, Final Fantasy IX came out at the very tail end of the PS1, and little Juan, it's like, the PS2, that's where it's at, right? That thing's nice. You know, it's like, forget about that PS1 and the classic graphics there. So yeah. I traded all of that in, and I had the strategy guide for it, and I know I was basically at the end. I had maybe another hour, and I just never beat the game. And it's not because I stopped playing it. I didn't get cold with it. It's just I traded it in, and I played Final Fantasy IX a whole lot of times, but I've never beaten it. I'm like, I was there, dude. Like, why were we such dumb children, Ryan? Can you answer that?
Because if it wasn't like your birthday or Christmas, it was really hard to get a game as a kid. So the best leverage you had was to go to GameStop, where they basically take advantage of poor kids and, you know, give them like 50 cents for a game, and then they turn around and sell for $30 on their shelf. And that was the best way to get games as a kid, was to trade in your old games.
Oh man,
and it was brutal. And I think you'll see a common theme for a lot of kids and their regrets. And definitely one of mine also being, trading in my Nintendo 64 to get a GameCube. That one I was recently able to finally, many years later, redeem by getting an N64 again.
You're talking about that, and it just reminded me that one day I traded in a whole lot of games from PS1, like Final Fantasy Tactics, Trap Gunner, and it was at a very specific GameStop. And I don't know if you had the same situation where with the PS1 games, they would put them in like a plastic bag, and then they would just like have them like hanging like around a specific corner. And then one day I go, and that section is basically Juan's GameStop because it was like all the games that I traded in. And then I felt bad. I felt so bad because I immediately started having that regret, but you can't just like take it back, right? You can't just be like, hey, it's my copy. So, can we just like have a do-over here? That's not really a thing, but there's a whole lot of people from the Discord, which people, we love having you involved. So that is acastofthepast.com/Discord. And we ask the question, and as we bring some of these up, we are going to naturally react and see if there's anything that comes to mind regarding us. And this one is a pretty painful, comes to us from Maydross, who writes, biggest regret, selling my Sega Saturn may be mine. That or just a general not keeping the boxes of my games and in good condition. Ryan, especially with N64. I think N64, Game Boy Color. How many of those games you kept the game but threw away the cartridge, the carton box?
Well, let's see. Every single N64 game I ever owned, or
Same.
Every Super Nintendo game, all the boxes are gone, which is why they're so valuable today, because almost nobody kept them. But I will say, shout out to Chris, who was a recent guest on our show a couple weeks ago. Tell me this isn't the best dad in the world. His dad told him to save those boxes. And recently, he showed me a screenshot. He has almost every box of N64 that, like, he has almost every box in pretty damn good condition of his games. So, and now he's got like protective cases and everything. So that's just an amazing call by his dad. And that's just it's really cool to see that some people were able to hang on to them. Like the best deal I found was, maybe about 10 years ago, that A Link to the Past copy that I found at a comic store for $20. It was a little beat up, but even that in that condition today would probably be about $100. So yeah, the boxes, that's something I think anyone who's a game collector today regrets how terrible they treated the boxes as a kid. But I was always good about the cartridge or like the disc themselves. I was always good about taking care of it. But as far as the boxes, nope.
Ryan, I got stuff to say here. I got stuff to say.
Does this have to do with 2 copies of an N64 game?
Yep, and others. Yeah.
This one hurts. This one hurts
really bad. So this must have been 2000. This is worse than my other story, because this is like 2005, 6. This is
that's what I'm thinking. This is way worse.
Yeah. Our Toys R Us in Puerto Rico, for whatever reason, would always have just like this clearance section of just like, you'd see random Game Boy games. It's like years after. Many years. It's like, I don't know if they were just left on a shelf in the back or something. One day, I go there and they have a weeping selection of N64 games sealed. Now, keep in mind, Toys R Us keeps their stuff in a that hard shell. So it's not just that it's complete in box, is that it's basically brand new. And these were like $5 to $10 each. And I got 2 sealed copies of Perfect Dark. I got a sealed copy of Matin and other games. I honestly don't remember which. So that happened. Keep in mind, I'm a teen transitioning into adult a couple of years later. So this knock in here should tell you, like, Juan, do not sell these things. Don't be a freaking idiot. I was a freaking idiot that didn't have a whole lot of money, and I traded those to GameStop which first of all, it's like they took it for almost next to nothing. I think it was like less than $10 each for sealed copies of Perfect Dark
dude
on N64. And I know I still have some old pictures of like a stack of things that I bought that highlights those two games. So it's like there's evidence of me being a freaking moron. Ryan, can you just like insult me? Take a shot at me. Take a shot at me.
So wait, why? I don't know why you traded in.
I don't know, man. I
why
don't know.
you traded in sealed copies of Perfect Dark?
Donut eating is my hobby. Like I don't make a lot of sense, Ryan.
Would you like to know what the last? This is graded copy.
No.
Although I imagine
you are not going there. Okay.
I imagine that these would have been graded at a decent level because they were pretty much in perfect condition.
They were in hard shell Toys R Us, so they were just.
So I'm seeing one that went for $800 and another one that went for $510.
I'm okay. I'm gonna be okay.
That hurts. I know. When I saw that picture and you told me you don't have those anymore, it pained me. It pained me. And Perfect Dark is not the easiest game to find either. Like
why? Dude, I freaking hate myself. Everybody just like a cast of the past on Twitter. Call my ass out. Join the Discord.
It's gonna be hard to top that one.
Man, I'm just going to go over. Okay, what else do we have in the Discord before I keep crying here? Let's see here. Yannick writes, selling my original dark blue Game Boy Advance SP because I just got a DS and that is backwards compatible to GBA. My sister also had the tribal GBA SP, which is what I use now, but I deeply regret selling it. And man, that's another thing I really regret, trading in the SP, which not too long ago, the prices were still pretty low. Then pandemic happened and a lot of that changed. But any Game Boy trading in stories?
I don't think I ever traded in my Game Boys. I think I just lost them and never found them again.
That's not your, okay. So you're still not at Juan level.
Or got thrown out. Yeah. So I don't know what happened to my original like thick boy green Game Boy or the Game Boy Advance that I had. But I never had the SP, but I still want to get one because that way you can play your Game Boy games and you can play your GBA. And then if you have DS, 3DS, then you can pretty much play any handheld Nintendo game aside from the Switch. That's definitely a shame because SP was like, it's the oldest game model of a handheld that I'm like, yeah, I still want one of those because it was that good that it's still like something you would want to use today.
Which one did you have, color-wise?
For the Game Boy GBA?
Yeah, a GBA or a DSP?
So it was technically my sister's, but she eventually stopped using it, so it just became mine. But it was the white original model.
I had the purple GBA and the silver SP. Those things were awesome. And with what Yannick wrote, something that I just hate myself because it was always there. Nobody wanted them. And now it's like super expensive. GameCube, Game Boy Player. Like the Game Boy Advance Player, it's like you can buy that super cheap online. But the disc itself is what really costs a lot. Like that'll cost you upwards to $100. And I remember it's like GameStop.
Probably just because a lot of them got thrown out.
Yeah. And GameStop was massively overstocked with a lot of that stuff where I lived or where I traveled. To the point they were like $20, but I just kept thinking to myself, like, playing Game Boy games on a television. What are you, an idiot? And then here I am.
I think there's a lesson to be learned.
I'm stupid.
As far as like in the world, because we always kind of circle back to collecting no matter what we're talking about. But so if there's like a fringe accessory especially for like Nintendo, if there's like a fringe accessory that isn't selling well,
buy it.
Pick it up. Just pick it up and just stash it away because those are always the ones that are like super expensive because it's like, oh, nobody wanted it back in the day. And then 10 years from now, somebody's going to want it for who's going to complete their collection.
And I'm not that person, sadly. Now we have Sir Meadwad who writes, I'm trying to think of something less generic than I wish I kept all my old games and still had them with complete boxes. I think that's the most simple, basic one for a gamer, right? Just getting rid of that stuff. The most specific thing, he writes, regarding all of that would be that I wish we had kept the Sega Saturn and bought more games for it. And of course, if I still had them today, what a goldmine that would be. Yeah, because the Sega Saturn has, it's a console that I never played. I never touched the controls, anything like that. But some of those games, I was actually looking up the other day. I'm part of like a lot of retro collecting groups on Facebook, and somebody was like, "Oh, this game cost me a pretty penny." And I was thinking like $100 or something. I go on eBay. The average price is $600, $500. It was the Street Fighter Anthology. And that's a game that probably went for like what, 30, $40 when it came out. And in hindsight, you're like, of course you should have bought a copy of that, right? Is there any game that you think of that has dramatically gone up in price? You brought up that, you're collecting games like Silent Hill and all of that. Is there anything else that you wish you would have bought when it was cheaper?
Most of that stuff would probably be like the GameCube PS2 era. A lot of these like Silent Hill games, when I was playing them back in college, you could probably get them for like, $30-$40. Yeah, Silent Hill 3 I remember passing on because it was like $35 when I got in Silent Hill 2 for like $15. So I was like, do I really want to shell out like $30-$40? And then so now I had to pay like over $100 for that copy. And now there's like the other Silent Hill games that are like Origins and Silent Hill 4 are now like they hover around the $80 to $100 range. And I'm just like, I just don't like those games enough to pay that much, really. So, yeah, definitely passing on a lot of those because I did go through a little collecting phase in like the 2010, 2011. So that might be up there as regrets. I think, but a lot of these, the stuff when you're a kid, it's just nobody really thought to do that because game collecting it wasn't a big thing yet.
Exactly. I brought up a game like Trap Gunner earlier, and it's bittersweet because it's one of my favorite PS1 games, even though it's not great. It's okay. Basically, it's a Bomberman clone. But then Nostalgic Juan is like, hey, you should buy it, add it to your collection. It's $55 used, complete. So I'm like, it's a game that I know I would love to have, but at $55, I can get a whole lot of other games that I would definitely play more than twice. And I think that's sometimes the challenge, right? Let's see
Definitely.
here. We have a couple more comments here. This one comes to us from Ace, and it's in a different light, but similar to what Ryan mentioned with Fable. He writes, Kingdom Hearts 3, I don't want to talk about it. No more. Now, I have not played Kingdom Hearts 3, but it was quite the spectacle. Not going to share any spoilers because, once again, I haven't even played it, but you could feel the frustration when people were playing it and it came out. I think it also happened with Mass Effect Andromeda, right, where there's a massive build-up to a game. You played it, and it just shatters you. It just disappoints you, and you kind of just fall off. Is there any game that comes to mind that it doesn't have to be a horrible game, but something that expectation was not necessarily met?
It was probably Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. When everyone wanted Banjo 3, and this is the game that we got, that was kind of soul-crushing. Eventually, me and my buddy did play through it and beat the game, but it was kind of like we're just doing it just because it's Banjo-Kazooie and we still want to see the full game. But that was definitely one of those like soul-crushing, not necessarily a regret, but just a disappointing, situation.
Something that's not to the same level is that, so I didn't get a 360 till many years after it came out. I did get a PS3. It wasn't at launch, but it was the 60 gigabyte one. I want to say it was within the first year and a half that it came out. I can never really pinpoint out when, but I honestly regretted it. Like, I wanted to get it because I grew up playing PlayStation, right? I had an OG Xbox, but I didn't have like an emotional attachment. But I had heard so much about the Red Ring of Death that I just said, I'm not going to take that risk and I'll get the PS3. But then every game that I got that was on the 360 played worse, ran worse, online was worse, like Rainbow Six Vegas comes to mind. So I basically had a really good Blu-ray player. And hey, I mean, I guess it was bittersweet. Last week we talked about rental memories. I watched a hell of a lot of movies on that PS3, but it was because that first year, I'm like, man, these games are so average. And obviously, as time went on, things got a lot better. But I do wish that I almost would have taken that risk and gotten a 360 because, like, I never got to experience Gears 1. I played Gears of War 2 and 3. I played a little bit of 1, but I felt like, man, do you want to play that so many years after it came out? And I feel like I missed out on a lot of special stuff with the gaming.
Yeah, that iconic Gears of War commercial, like sold everyone, that Mad World commercial.
It was so good.
As a PS3 owner, I think I bought mine like a year into the life cycle. Yeah, it was rough for PS3 owners. I never owned a 360, so I was used to always having to most of the time have the inferior version of the game just because it took so long for developers to figure out how the heck to like make a game on a PS3. So it was a rough ride for a while, but fortunately PS3 did finally like catch up at the end.
It did. And people, the regrets continue because this one comes to us from Eric, who writes, "My aunt bought me a Sega Dreamcast for Christmas '99. Now that, my friends, that's a good aunt. It was a total surprise. At the time, I didn't even know how big of a gift it was. A few years later, I sold it. CIB Ryan. I'm Juan, you're Ryan. CIB, complete in box to a local game store. Oh, damn. He sold it complete in box to a local game store for $17. Not $1,700, $17. He wanted money for a new PS2 game. I just recently bought a used Dreamcast and some games I used to have. So expensive. Biggest gaming regret of your life." Is there anything that comes to mind when you see that? Or here's a good one. Did you ever see somebody about to make this mistake? You were at a GameStop at an EB Games and you saw somebody that you're like, no, you're about to make a mistake. You know those big, large brown boxes and you know something bad's about to happen.
It pains me you see anyone trading in a whole bunch of stuff to GameStop, or a lot of times, you know, my friend will be like, "Oh, I'm just going to trade these into GameStop." And I'm like, "Oh, just sell them on eBay. You'll get like so much more money." But it's always, people never want to take that extra effort to like have to deal with shipping and all that stuff. But man, yeah, it really does pain me to see situations like that. Dreamcast, it's such a like beloved system too, with so many unique games that you hate to see. Like $17 is pretty rough. It's like it doesn't even get you that much it gets you like what, not even 5% of the way there towards your like PS2.
No, and complete in box. Even though back then, I mean, I don't know when exactly that happened, but he mentioned PS2 games, so I would like to think it was like beginning of the 2000s. I don't think complete in box is a big deal then. I think a lot of places saw it as a burden. It's like, oh, and you're giving me the box, I should pay you less.
I think they only cared, like, they would only dock you if you didn't have like all the wires and all that stuff. So,
but that was some good stuff. And then the last one comes to us from Madros. We got a part 2 here. Oh yeah, and other ones are giving away my Atari 2600 and NES GBA SP to a friend who was supposed to let me know when he no longer wanted them and I would buy them back, but he sold them at a garage sale. Oof. Oh, that hurt to read. I do have another NES style GBA SP now though, because I really liked that one. Is there anything like, you know, he brought up garage sales. Is there anything you ever saw on sale, store closing, or any opportunity that you should have seized the moment and just spent a whole ton of money and didn't and regret it?
Definitely. There was a GameStop recently closing in nearby, and I was like, man, I could have went there. I could have bought some of like the displays or something like that. But now there is another GameStop near me that's closing, so I need to go over there. But it's been a couple weeks now, so I don't know if it's like closed yet. I just haven't been able to make my way like a couple towns over. Yeah, but I regret it because when a store is closing down, you might be able to get some cool stuff, some like cardboard standee display things. I'm probably not going to shell out the cash for one of those like game console like demo stations.
I would have just not willing to. That's
we
one
know,
of my dreams.
Yeah, we know Sir Meatwad on the Discord got himself I think a Sega Saturn one, which is just insane.
So GameStop closed down in Puerto Rico 2016, I believe it was. And I was able to get some stuff, although I was heartbroken because at that time, I basically worked around Puerto Rico, like all of the island, which is like super beneficial for something like this. But it was one of those weeks that they just said, it was literally, they said on Friday, we're closing down. And then Monday, they're already doing the clearance. But it started at like, 10% off, 20% off, like very small. Then all of a sudden, they just went 50, but I was giving trainings that week. And I'm just like, I'm working, but I could be going there. I was able to go to one and get Skylander Swap Force, like the whole set for PS4 for like $7. I got We Love Katamari for like $3 on PS3. The Move controllers have gone up in price, and they were 99 cents, and I did not buy any of them. And I found out that just the day before, because the way the register was working, it would just stack up. So the more you bought, the more you saved. Somebody actually bought almost all the Xbox One X's at that time, like the PlayStation 4s, and they bought them at like half price and all that stuff. And then they would just like resell. And I wouldn't have done that. I would have just liked to beef up my PS3 collection. I actually saw a picture that I took of like the 70% off label. And then a couple of days ago, I'm just like looking at like, I should have gotten that game. I should have bought that game. I should have bought that game. So I just got to stop taking pictures of stuff. So that way I can pretend it didn't happen, Ryan.
Yeah, they come back to haunt you pretty bad, huh?
Yeah. So
I imagine if I went to that GameStop now that it's been like 2 weeks, there's probably nothing good left. It's probably just complete junk if they're even still open.
Check if there are some Wii U games though. I mean, you can check.
I'll see. I'll see if I can get a trip down there.
Couple of copies of Just Dance. But Ryan, how does this episode make you feel? How do you feel now?
I feel like a little bit of a weight is off my chest. I don't know if you feel the same way. Nope, it still hurts.
Like the weight that you took off, I took on, my friend.
Yeah, that perfect dark, it still hurts. It hurts me a little bit too, I'll be honest.
I gotta
it hurts me more than a little bit, actually.
I posted on the Discord, right? I gotta look at that picture. I'll post it on. I don't know if I should post it, but like I'll post it on the Twitter as well, so people can just like roast me, rightfully so. Yeah. Rightfully so. But people, if you want to be part of the conversation, once again, huge shout out to everybody on the Discord. That's acastofthepast.com/Discord. If you like everything that we do, there's a whole lot of ways you can support. One of them is by subscribing to the YouTube channel, whether you listen to devices like on the road or not. That's youtube.com/acastofthepast. Leaving that 5-star review on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. We recently had, as Ryan mentioned, a good friend of ours, Chris, be part of a review for Pokemon, the trading card game on the Game Boy Color. We have a lot of good stuff coming up. We've talked about the Austin Powers movie, the first one, more coming up. And that is going to be doing it for a very sad and painful episode of a cast
to the
past. This has been like almost 30 minutes, but I feel like it's been 4 hours, Ryan.
Just imagine, Juan, that GameStop employee ripping that plastic off.
Oh, right.
Opening the box.
Oh, no.
He puts like a disgusting sticker on the cartridge and he just throws the box up.
Make it stop.